Murder! Murder! Murder!
Most foul. Welcome to Most Foul TV. This is Most Foul Music. Here is your host, Don Penn.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Most Foul TV. I am your host, Don T. Pena, and this is Most Foul Music. So today, we got a special guest with us. She's an independent artist, independent drummer, has played many years as a session drummer. She is a endorsed artist. She's an MI graduate, toured, played in albums all over, with several different bands. Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely Jay Shaw. Say hello, Jay.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. Why drums? First of all, like what got you into playing drums? Why did you choose that instrument?
Originally I was into just mostly like small percussion instruments, and I really wanted to actually play violin in grammar school. And I went to a Catholic school, and that already cost a lot of money, of course, for my family. So they were like, we really can't afford any violin lessons, even though it was, I think, like a group setting of like 4 or 5 kids at a time. She just said, just stick with the regular school band. It's free, and you guys are going to do all the fun plays like for Christmas and Halloween and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I'm okay with that for now. But eventually my passion kind of grew, but at the same time, I knew it was going to be a big cost. So I think by the time I was 12, they said, well, you're still interested. Let's go ahead and get you a guitar and get you some lessons. So I had a few lessons, but I just really wasn't sticking with it that much. And they were like, all right, if you're not going to stick with it, we're not going to really keep, pumping in the money to have these lessons and have you go and sit with this guy. So I said, okay, that's fine. So around that time, I had a girlfriend of mine that was also in the same grade as I was, but she was doing some after school programs, and one of those was marching band. And I was like, wow, really, a girl that is playing drums? I said, which kind are you playing? And she was telling me at the time that she was trying out different ones or whatever. So I said, oh, that's cool. I think she mostly played snare and maybe one other type. So that piqued my interest for drums and then different percussion, since I was always doing percussion anyway, like maracas, xylophone, other kind of small instruments. The drums wasn't really too far of a stretch from what I was really interested in. So that piqued my interest more. And then her mom bought her like a full kit, I think a couple of years later, but she never played it. She just let it sit. So I'd come over to her house, we'd have sleepovers, and we'd hang out and we'd play music, and I get a chance to check out the drums or whatever. But of course, her mom would always be like, you guys got to keep it down. It's too loud. So I was like, okay.
And this was in which grade?
Probably getting into 7th or 8th grade. So what is that, like 12 years old, give or take?
Yeah, 12, 13. So kind of like a lot of musicians around that age when they start to get into music and kind of on a more serious, like, I guess, format, because I was about that age, about 13 or whatever, when I started actually playing guitar. Same thing too. Played violin when I was a kid, didn't really give a shit for it. I think a lot of kids, or a lot of musicians, I think many of us kind of start on other instruments, kind of dabble in it, don't really take to it until they find the one that they actually like gravitate towards. And that's why I asked. I know for everybody, every musician, it's a little different on what instrument they like. So what was it about the drums that you were just like, so besides your friend kind of not playing her drum set, but what was there a certain artist, was there a certain influence where you're like, you know what, this is the instrument?
Not in particular. I just think that I had asked for one type of instrument, I was given another, even though it was stringed. It really wasn't the same. You go from something that has 6 strings, when I asked to play something that was 4, and I think I just kind of got more into it because of the uniqueness of it. I didn't know of any other girls or women at that time, even though I'm sure there were some females in the industry that were already playing in bands and artists, or different percussion people, but not that I knew of on the radio at that time.
There still isn't that many even now. I mean, there sure as hell wasn't that many back then, and there's still even not that many. I mean, who can you name really off the top of your head that's a female drummer in any real like rock band? I mean, there's the White Stripes chick that everybody talks about. but she's horrible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say she's horrible. She was playing for the music that it was. That's
He's
what
horrible
I.
too.
Aw. No, I really like that band. I didn't buy their album. I think I bought a couple of the singles on CD at the time when they still sold CD singles. But some of the things that got me more interested too when I was younger were a couple of cartoons that I was really big into. And even though it was kind of an older cartoon, there was this cartoon called Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that.
and that had a drummer, and she was supposed to be, I'm assuming, black or African American. And then also the cartoon called Jim.
I was gonna say, I'm like, what was the other? Yeah, there
That's
was
from
two.
the
Yeah, it was Josie and the
80s.
Pussycats, and then there was Jem. Yeah.
Jim also had obviously it's an all-female band, and the drummer was black, and she had the cool kind of hexagon-shaped 80s kid. I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's so badass.
Yeah, I remember. I
So it
remember
kind
Jem.
of peaked, and then it just kept growing, and I knew other people, boys that played in band and stuff like that for different school, and then by that time I'm in high school or whatever. But I just didn't go that route, and in high school I was also in a Catholic school for high school as well. They didn't really
So
offer
sad.
that much. They didn't offer that much music stuff at the high schools I was going to, for whatever reason. So I didn't get a chance to do any kind of marching band or whatever. But what I did do is I had like a Casio keyboard that my mom had got me one Christmas. And of course, it had a lot of percussion sounds on it. So I was teaching myself how to play piano as well as, playing around with the different percussive sounds that were on the keyboard. And then from there, I just decided to go full blast. At that time, I was like 18, and I made a decision that that's what I wanted to do. I was listening to a ton of music, of course, a lot of rock and pop and R&B type styles, since I was a little kid, like we're talking like 3, 4 years old. So fast forward to about 18, and I had a lot of different types of influences from what my family was listening to and then what I was listening to, like Sabbath and Zeppelin. I was into Slayer and Metallica, a lot of stuff that was pretty hard and heavy. And then just got basically just some pads and sticks and some beginner books. And then after that, I just enrolled into Columbia College at 18. And I did their music program for a couple of years. And then that's when I jumped to MI like a couple of years later after that.
So you said you went to college or Catholic schools when you grew up. Well, that wasn't here in California, right? Or was it?
No, that's in Chicago. I'm originally from
Yeah.
Chicago. And then I moved out to LA sometime after that. So yeah, I did the college first couple of years. I studied there and got my feet wet with learning the notation or whatever because I could play probably. Even though we lived in an apartment, so we couldn't have a full blown kit, but I was using pads and stuff like that to play and practice. But once I got to college, obviously, you could go into a room and you can sign up for a time. And I spent a lot of time my first couple of years, just taking the bus, going to classes, and spending a lot of time in those private rooms, just jamming out, and of course, learning how to read and write music.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on two things, but I'll go in order here. You talked about you went to Musician Institute, and anybody who's listened to the first episode of Most Foul Music would know that I'm also an MI kid. So how was that experience for you? I've talked to different people, and depending on, I think, their own personal like use of their time, I guess I've had different reactions. Like some people, they who were into MI. Oh, MI sucked, and I didn't learn anything, and all they did was take my money. And then I've talked to other people who loved it, who are like me, who's like loved every minute of their time there, got as much as they could out of it. So what is it for you? How did you how was your experience at Musicians Institute?
I would say my overall experience was very positive and very exciting. I actually had a guy that I was dating before I actually went to the school that suggested MI. I had heard of it. Of course, I'd heard of like places like Juilliard and Berkeley. And I was just like, he's just like, I don't know if you're quite, because you kind of started a little late and you're not that advanced on your reading and writing. I want to suggest the school that I graduated from. And at the time, I think it was just GIT, BIT, and maybe one other program. I don't really remember what the 3 original ones were. But he graduated from there, and he suggested that I check it out. So I did check it out, and I did the little I think they gave a paper test, and they also ask you on a old-fashioned cassette to
Oh yeah,
send in like a
the little audition tape.
audition tape.
Yeah.
And initially, he told me, the guy from the drum institute, he's like, "Well, it's not that great, to be honest." He's like, "How many years have you been learning to read and write?" I said, "Oh, just a couple of years." I said, "I'm more freestyle and self-taught before that." So he's just like, "Do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to not, enroll for this coming up, but come in for the next year," which I think was in May for the spring. "But I want you to practice hard or get some lessons or do whatever, and then resubmit another cassette to me." And I was heartbroken. My mom was like, "Don't trip. Like, it's not
Right.
that bad." I mean, I
Wow.
totally freaked out.
They actually told about. They must have been a little more stricter around that time back then, because
Maybe. I don't
nowadays,
know.
especially when I went, I mean, I didn't go till mid 2000s. I was well in my mid 20s, well, not mid 20s, but close to mid 20s when I enrolled at MI. I think it's 23 when I got there. So it was way different. Like, I mean, I had to do an audition tape and all that too, but
Oh, okay.
it was not, because I thought the same thing. I listened to the myths growing up in high school, to my friends saying the same shit. Like, oh, you got to know all these scales, and you got to already know how to read music, or they won't take you. So I knew about it in high school, but I didn't try to get in after high school because I just didn't think I'd get in. And then come to find out, like, when I finally did, all of that was bullshit. Like, at least by the time I got, they didn't give a fuck. Like, all MI cared about, especially at that point, and probably to this day, is really money. And then, like, I went in with the impression, like, well, you can't be a beginner. You can't be an absolute beginner. They don't want to teach you from the ground up. You have to know a little something. And then it turns out that even that's not fucking true. That's a bunch of bullshit too, because I had a classmate who didn't know dick for anything on guitar. Like, he was horrible. He would never practice. And they accepted him. Why? Because he came from a rich family and he paid the tuition in full. And so MI didn't care. So
Oh, yeah.
I think
It could be.
it
I don't
sounds
know if that has anything to do with it or not. I mean, I wound up having to take out a loan because initially they wound up telling me later on, like in the bursar's office or the financial office, like, "Oh, you haven't lived here long enough. You're not really considered a resident. Now you've got to pay." And that freaked out my family too. And I was like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" Like, oh no. So that kind of sucks. So I only had like a certain amount. I think like we came up with the initial whatever they were asking. And then they were like, "Well, once you've lived here for X amount of months or whatever," because I got there kind of early. I didn't move there just like 2 weeks before the school started. I got there like 2 or 3 months earlier, found an apartment with some people and all of that, and then went to school. So I thought I had enough months in to be considered a resident, and then found out that I wasn't. But, I took out the loan, and oh well, I mean, it wasn't a big deal. So yeah, I mean, they don't see me as the cash cow like they see the foreign kids, like especially at the time heavily from Japan and Europe, especially
Yeah.
Northern Europe.
yeah,
All the kids were from Sweden, Norway,
exactly.
Denmark,
Oh, it's still.
places like that. Probably still are. But I mean, my overall experience was really positive. I had a great time. It wasn't such a bad thing that I had to wait another semester or a term or whatever to go, the spring of the next year. At the time, I just did the certificate program, that's all they had at the time, which was 1 year. They didn't have what they have now, where you can have a degree and
Yeah.
all these other cool things and DJing. I was like, what the hell? Like, wow, they really come up. But at
Yeah, I
the time,
think-
it was just a 1 year program. And
I think
had
they
a
even bought
blast.
the film school. I think they bought the LA Film School that was like down the street. And I think that's part of the whole thing too. I don't know what it's called, but I'm pretty sure that MI bought that.
Yeah, they bought a couple of different things. They also got into, this is way after I graduated, the makeup school that's behind there as well. I forget what it's called. I think it's called EI or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember. So they have like a whole makeup thing. They dabbled in a lot after, 20 plus years of making that kind of money, where most of their students are foreigners that are paying the whole amount up front, not like some Midwest kid like myself that don't have half the money and like, oh, what am I going to do for the rest? And I take out a loan and I'm in debt later and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I would say it was worth it, and I had a great time because, it was like the guy was telling me that suggested that went to GIT. You're too book learned. You don't know enough. It's like you could probably play and you're self-taught, but you need to just get out there and play a lot of different styles. And I think the school is best for you than something stuffy like Berkeley. You need to just get out there and play and try to fast forward yourself, into the whole music industry and see how it happens for you. And if you don't like it, you could always move back home. I was like, that's true.
I think learn how to become a performer, because that's definitely, I think
Yes.
I I always tell people that's the difference between Berkeley and MI. And granted, I've never been to Berkeley, but just from what I've read and from what I've researched on it, it's literally that. You got Musicians Institute is very much the performance school. Like, you want to learn how to quote unquote be a rock star, or just learn how to be a live musician and perform. MI's that school, because that's what it really is. That's all you do is just perform. And then, not that they don't teach you anything, they obviously teach you stuff, but and then Berkeley is just kind of the strict book stuff, like you're in the classroom all the time. There's performances, but it's not the same. It's not Hollywood type of performances the way MI teaches you how to play, the way they teach you how to perform. So I agree. I think that was a big difference in kind of what MI was about.
Yeah, I think those people are more, if you ask me, and I could be wrong, but from what I've noticed, they tend to be Juilliard, Berkeley, those types of schools that are very more not so performance in your face, rock star, Hollywood, or whatever. Those are your session players, your recording guys, people that do tours and, teach privately to, rich kids or whatever. I mean, not to say that somebody from Berkeley can't jam out and, become the next hard metal act, because there are people that have done that. But
Dream Theater.
That's true. I mean, Dream Theater is a good example.
Not really though. They it's funny that they claim Berkeley, but not. I mean, it's such a kind of a joke, because they were only there for 6 months and then they left.
Right.
Like, they didn't graduate there. They didn't they were already badasses when they got there. They went there. They met there. Like they met the original members there, but they didn't stay. It's not like they were like learn how to be a band at Berkeley. They already knew what the fuck they were doing. And then after 6 months, they're like, why are we here? We might as well just go be a band. And then they did. So, but I always find it funny that they still claim Berkeley, or Berkeley claims them.
Yeah.
So we I kind of went a little sidetracked with the MI thing. So because we wanted to talk about like your actual experience there. Like you said, it's, They did the audition thing, and for me, like when they did the audition for me, like I said, I thought I was all nervous. I kind of had the same feeling where I was like, oh man, I hope they accept me and all that, and they did, and I was all happy about it. But then again, I kind of got the wind kicked out of me later, because then I found out they really didn't give a shit. It had nothing to do with my skill, because they were just accepting everybody at that point. And that's not to say that I suck or not, but I just, you just kind of realize that, like, at that point, MI was a little different when it came to the audition stuff. So it's kind of refreshing that back then when you went, they were still kind of hard up on, like, we want musicians. And, because it really isn't like that anymore. But with that said, I still had a great time, just like you. I have fond memories of MI. I formed my first pro band there, which was Man the Destroyer. Learned how to be a legit musician. So your time at MI, while you were there, the years you were there, so like, what was that like? Did you form any bands there? What kind of gigs did you play? What was that like?
I was strictly a student when I was there, and I lived with 3 other guys. And by the way, there were only at the time me and one other girl from Japan, and she was a flight attendant full time, but still went to MI part time. How she did it, I don't know.
Wow.
But it was just the 2 of us out of all of those young men at the time, if you can believe that. I was like, wow, holy crap.
In the whole school?
Where are all the girls? So that was kind of weird, but I kind of got used to it. And then, like, halfway through 6 months, a couple of other girls started to come through. And there were only actually 2 female teachers at the time. One was like a country western type drummer, and she played with some top people. I don't remember who they were from that long back, and the other girl, I think her name was Maria Reyes or Maria something, and she was more of the Latin style drummer. She also did percussions like timbales and congas and bongos and stuff like that. So the whole female ratio at the time was like, holy crap, like, wow. It was like, 2 women and 1,000 dudes in the building. I was like, wow. Of course, for vocals, there were way more females in the vocal program and stuff like that. But I did the live playing workshops. I never was in like a band, like I said, while I was there. I just basically was on student mode and, practicing and making sure I was doing what I wanted to do and having fun with it, and chatting with different people. So I just did the live playing workshops, and that was really about it. I didn't really
The
do anything
LPWs.
until after I didn't do anything after until graduation, and I didn't really do much after that. I mean, there was a lot going on at the time in Hollywood, and I just wound up trying to get a job and not finding much employment and trying to find, drumming gigs, and that wasn't easy either. Because sometimes it really is about all you know, and when you have 100 kids all graduate at the same time from someplace and they're all looking for a quick music gig, they're going to take the best of the best or those that they already know or who are already been out there playing places like all the Sunset Strip and all those kind of places. And I hadn't really had that experience because I was just new to LA in general. I was from Chicago, so I didn't know anybody except the people I was rooming with and fellow students, and that was it. So I stayed maybe another 8 months or so in LA, and then I moved back home, and then moved back out again after I had a few years of work, and said I was gonna, make sure that I got back out to LA at some point and try to make it happen for myself.
So that brings me kind of to the second question I wanted to touch on with along the lines like literally what you just talked about. You're being like one of two female drummers in that program amongst 200 guys or whatever, other students, male students back then. So what was that like? What was not just at MI, but in general, being a female drummer, being a female musician in a obviously very male dominated industry? And what was that like for you? Because it's still like that to this day. There's a lot more female musicians now, but it's still like, obviously it's still, the balance is still not even when it comes to male and female musicians. So what was that like for you growing up, being a female musician, being a female drummer, especially in rock and metal, where it's obviously dominated by a bunch of guys?
You mean as in at while I was in my, or just
Just
in
in
general?
general, just in general,
Oh,
like
just
how just having that experience, like from a female perspective. Because for a guy, it's easy. I mean, you're in a band, no matter what musician or what instrument you play, you're just most of the time you're just around other dudes. I can't imagine what if the scales were tipped, how men or guys or boys in general would kind of deal with going into an industry where 90% of the workforce is just female, and you're like the only guy. I guarantee guys would kind of fold in that. Most guys just be like, oh, this is weird, and then just like leave. So I think people don't understand the difference, like how unbalanced it is when it comes to just the number of like mostly guy musicians, and then there's a sprinkle of female musicians, and it's a different thing. So I just kind of want to get your perspective on that again. So in general, how it was for you being a female musician coming up through music.
Well, yeah, like you're saying, it's like two little female drummers and a sea of, at MI, for example, more than 100 male students, and it's only two females at the time. I don't know how many ladies were there before me, probably about the same, maybe more, I really don't know. And only a handful after I left. So it's always kind of been that, yeah, like, oh, wow, we're the oddball out. Like, it's not the norm. You don't see it very much. There was only, like I said, a handful of female musicians that I'd heard of, and a couple of those were freaking cartoons. But whoever thought of the cartoon had enough, thought and very equal in their mind. Whoever designed or thought of the characters to say, hey, that character can play drums or whatever. So I would say that even though it's been way not even, there have been some people that have played, even like I said, well before my time. Like even I found out there was somebody from the 1920s, and she was awesome. So you can watch those videos online in black and white of her and her band. And she had like a all female orchestra or whatever, but she was the band leader and she was the drummer. So I mean, there were those women, but they're so far and few between. And then as we, fast forward to the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, for me, into the 80s is more, I see a little bit more of the drummers. Obviously, at that time, it would be Sheila E., who is still,
Yeah.
a renowned, great artist and always will be, even until she's 100. It doesn't matter because she paved the way for so many other female drummers to be in that kind of R&B / rock pop genre, I would call it. And she grew up in a musical family, so that's a little bit different, but I would say that, it's always been a little tough, and you always feel like, you kind of not always have to prove yourself, but you got to make sure that you're able to bring whatever it is that you're bringing to the plate and make it strong, whatever it is. You always have that feeling like you've got to be just as good, if not better. And
That's
that
what I
you
was
have
going
to
to
make
ask.
sure that whatever you're saying that you can do, that you're interested in, and that you enjoy musically as a female drummer, bassist, guitarist, whatever, you always have this feeling in the back of your mind that you've got to do it better. Otherwise, you can't even come to the table. You know what I mean? You'll be laughed at, or they'll just take you as a joke or a sex object or the bitch in the band, that kind of stuff. I've heard it all.
Yeah,
Heard it all.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Did you feel at times that like you had to work harder and prove yourself even more so than the other person because you were a girl and because you have a certain group of people, a certain number of male musicians that are like, oh, this fucking girl, like whatever, she's trying to be a drummer, like what a joke, like you that attitude that like you're not good enough because you're a girl. So did you feel at times that you had that chip on your shoulder, like to not only prove that you were a musician, but it had nothing to do with you being female, you were just a musician, and you wanted to prove that?
Yeah, I mean, I still have that sometimes. You'd be surprised until this day. I mean, it's how, like, you're like, okay, fast forward 20, 30, whatever years it is, and you still feel like, well, dang, why do I still feel like I gotta prove something to you? I mean, it's very different now in the last, I would say, decade or so, maybe a little bit more, because if you ask me, it's like, why did they all decide to become drummers? Now it seems like, in my opinion, and maybe your opinion is different, the female drummers are a dime a dozen. It's just like, why are they all playing drums? It was a guitar for a while, I noticed, and maybe bass players that were mostly female, like the one for Rob Zombie. And then for a minute there, I was like, why are they all bass players? So I find that odd that it kind of switches up on which instruments it is. Of course, it can't be vocals because that's the natural thing that women would do, is sing, right? That's what they're good at.
Like
But sometimes I
vocals and
still
keyboard.
feel like that. Yeah, vocals, keyboards, obviously. I don't see a ton of keyboardists for metal, but I mean, for other genres, yeah, I see a lot of females still that do keys or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's always going to be, and even if I was maybe, a well known, world famous female artist, I may still at times feel like, I still need to be able to, bring it big or go home kind of a mentality. It's got, oh, I can't just relax, lay back, and maybe, oops, I made a mistake. I'm not Dave Grohl. He can pull that, but I can't. You know what I mean? That's the kind of.
And I think that's but that's a good attitude to have just in general, that, you're not trying to rest on your morals, and no matter what, you're trying to be better no matter what and be the best in whatever situation you're in, because even in a new setting, if you're playing for a new band or a new session, you're like, you know what, I need to prove to these people and to myself that I belong here, and there's a reason that they hired me, or there's a reason they asked me to do this song for them. And so that's, I mean, believe me, I've met a lot of musicians that they kind of accept what they are, like their level, and they're just kind of like, or they even sing back, or like they're being pushed, and they decide, you know what, that's getting a little too hard for me. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna stay in my safe zone. And I've seen that a lot. Like, I don't, I mean, I guess that's fine if that makes you happy and you just want to stay in your little lane. But I think for musicians who want to be better, for people in general who want to be better and be better at what they do, I think that's the attitude to have. Just always push yourself, always try to prove that, you're the best you absolutely can be. I
would say that also happens also, sorry to interrupt, but with being in an all-female band, because I've tried that. I've tried a lot of times to get all-female bands together, but you would think like, oh, well, you wouldn't have that problem with trying to prove or overachieve on a song, or you're playing harder or louder with it being all females. Nah, it don't work that way. I found that sometimes they're even harder and can be really even nastier with each other, even if it's like the bassist and the drummer to each other, or the vocalist and the keyboardist to each other. You're like, wow, what? So it kind of works honestly both ways. So females don't get a break whether they're an all-female band, or if they're in a mixed band, or if they're the only woman in a band.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's a musician's trait. I think it's a good trait in the sense that when you walk into a band, because I know for me, any musicians I played with or did work for, like if I was helping somebody out or playing something for somebody on their song, even if it was like a music that was probably, let's say, and I speak like this in like when I was like my later years when I was more experienced, I played for different friends and musicians that their level of playing wasn't at my level, where they didn't have the same experience, but they asked me to help them out or play something on one of their songs or tracks or whatever. And even in those settings where I'm like, okay, this style of music is a little more simpler than what I normally play, but I still would walk in with the attitude that I need to prove that I not only belong here, but and deserve to be, but that I'm thankful to be here. So I'm gonna fucking play my best. I'm gonna do the, I'm not gonna be some jackass and just phone it in and be like, oh, whatever, this music sucks. Like, this is so basic. Let me just play this bullshit because I don't really care. I always had that attitude no matter who I was playing with, just like you. Like, I need to prove myself. And I think that's a good trait to have for any musician. But like you said, I think it's one of those things that when you walk into a setting, you have that attitude already because you're a musician. And now it's worse because if you're a female, you have that attitude and then you have it double the amount because you got all these guys in the band looking at you like maybe you don't belong there. So yeah, I can only imagine.
And it's not always the best feeling because you just want to go in and kind of enjoy it. And, especially when you're first meeting a group of people that you've never played with. And, it's that whole thing, whether really you're a guy or a girl, you just want to make sure whatever instrument it is, you're able to play the song, that you show that you worked on it, you listen to it and you're ready to play. But it sometimes feels like for a while there, like for me and the bands that I've been in, I would say I felt like even though maybe I wasn't showing it outwardly, it took me weeks to feel comfortable, especially when it was just all guys. And again, even though they were the nicest guys, we all had fun, we all made mistakes. It just felt like, I still wasn't quite sure if I fit in a few weeks into it.
Yeah. And that's important, I think, but I think that, and that's just, I think that's a lesson for any musician, any band, especially when they're bringing new people in, is not everybody knows how to really make their bandmates feel comfortable. For me personally, I know a lot of the bands that I've been or formed and people I play with, I always try to do my best to make them feel welcome, but it's not an easy thing. Definitely, like I've played with other people who definitely have a different attitude and a different vibe, or it's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know about these people. So I wanted to ask you about your endorsements. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning in the intro there. So you have some endorsements from a few companies, right?
Yes, I have a couple. The very first one I got was with Soul Tone Cymbals. So that was pretty cool. That happened by chance, actually. I knew a guy on Facebook and I'd never met him in person. I just had a connection with him from like a drummers group. And he had mentioned to me like, oh, I'm starting to work with this new cymbal company. I was like, oh, that's great. I was like, what's the name of it? And yada, yada, yada. And he was telling me all about it and that he was planning on moving to Los Angeles. I believe he was living somewhere in the South at the time, maybe Atlanta. And I said, oh, that's cool. I said, well, if you get a chance to come out, it'd be great to, one day meet you or whatever. And then fast forward a couple years, he's just like, hey, I just wanted to, tell you about the cymbals again and see if you were interested in being endorsed. And I was just like, at the time, again, this is kind of how not every musician might think, but you think, oh, geez, endorsements are very different now. At the time, it was still kind of a hard thing to get into or to obtain. That not just any and everybody could get. You had to have done quite a bit of work, had a name out there, done some touring, been in a few bands or whatever, had a lot of recordings or videos or something. And I was like, I don't know. I said, gee, yeah, I said, thanks for the interest, but I said, I don't think that I'm going to be the kind of artist that you're looking for. And he's just like, well, why do you say that? What do you mean? And I said, well, I said, I don't play music for a living, first of all. And I said, I enjoy music. And he's like, well, you've done this, that, the other. I saw a few videos or whatever that you've done on YouTube or whatever. And I said, yeah. He's like, well, we're not looking for the expert drummer or, the next Neil Peart. We're just looking for people that are interested in trying out the cymbals, that like how they sound, how they look, and endorsing it. And then you get a little discount. I was like, oh, wow, that would be awesome. And I said, yeah, I'm all for that. I had it in my head that it was this huge thing that I had to be, a really big named artist and really be out there all the time. And he was just like, well, it doesn't matter. We're looking just for, the small fish in the bowl, not necessarily, the top of the food chain. We're looking for a bunch of smaller artists that are just starting out. Because he's like, you never know, all the smaller people might eventually, over a few years, become bigger artists. Some of those artists, that's how it happens for them. They may start out smaller, but later on they become bigger. And if you're already endorsed and it's a newer company, that also helps and gives that company a boost. So yeah, I've been with them. The other one was also just by talking with somebody randomly on Facebook about drumsticks. So I said, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. This guy came up with a design because I used gloves. I didn't like the whole glove thing. I thought it looked corny, honestly, like 80s. I was like, yeah, no, not the gloves. I can't do the gloves. And my hands always sweated. So I was just like, what is with that? Not always, but I mean, for the most part, using the gloves made my hands sweat more. So I said, that's not a good thing. So then they came out with tape and all this other stuff that you wrapped around the sticks, and it came in different colors and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I was using that, but then after a while, you have to replace the tape or whatever. So this guy was like, oh, well, I'm coming out with this design where I've actually cut some grooves, like little slice marks, into the sticks. So I said, oh, wow, that's cool. And another year or two went by, and he's just like, okay, I finally got the patent on it. Would you be interested in checking them out? And I said, yeah, sure. So it's called Cooper grooves, and they are just that. They have the grooves built into the actual drumsticks so that it helps to have a better grip on them when you're playing. So it eliminates any tape or gloves or any other little devices that they've come up with over the years to hold sticks.
That's awesome. I'll definitely we'll have some links and stuff for a lot of this stuff down in the description there.
Okay, yeah, cool. Because he's grown a lot too. He's been in Modern Drummer magazine. Soul Tone has as well. They've both won a lot of like awards at NAMM show and stuff like that. So they've come up over the years, that's for sure. And like I said, they started out small and they asked the newer, younger, smaller artists to be on board with them, and we grow together.
Yeah, we'll touch on NAMM. We'll talk about NAMM here in a second. For those who don't know, NAMM is the National Associations of Music Merchants. It's a big festival or big, basically music convention that they have every year in January. But we'll talk about that in a second. I want you to talk about your one of the first metal bands you were in, or recorded. Well, like the way you said it, one of the first serious metal bands you were in. And then we'll take a bit of a break and we'll play a little clip of that band. I can't play the whole thing because I don't own the rights to it, so we'll play a couple of seconds of it.
Right.
The link will be in the description for anybody that wants to check out the whole video. It will be in the description. But go ahead and talk about with Lord Marshall and your time with them and how that was.
That was kind of a cool band, and I was living in North Hollywood at the time, I believe. And I met this guy. He's originally from France. I don't remember the city, but he's from France. He was a great guy, and he's a very good guitarist. And he had some endorsements himself, and he had the band back home. And, he'd had the band, I think, for more than a few years back home in France, and then decided to move to Los Angeles. For whatever reasons, not all of the band came to Los Angeles. I think only one or two of the guys came. One of them did stay with him, and then another one came again, I think the drummer, and recorded some music and then went back. But, for whatever reasons, they weren't able to stay in LA, so he started looking for band members. And I had seen the ad on Craigslist on and off for probably almost a year and a half, and I thought, well, this guy never has any links to the music. How weird. I'm like, he keeps posting for different things. Like he was posting one time for a bass player, another time he's looking for a rhythm guitarist, and then another time he's looking for a drummer. So I was like, okay, wow. So I got up, the interest enough to see like what he was talking about, because he was saying that he had some label interest and he wanted to do a video that he was going to, pay for himself, and that it would be no cost to the band. And, he was just looking for members that, not necessarily were for hire, but that were more bandmates. But, I said, okay, I'll go ahead and check him out and see what he's about. And I said, well, you never have any links to the music. I don't know what it sounds like. So he's just like, oh, okay, I can send you some music. I just don't want to send it to everybody. So I said, okay. So he sent me the links, and I thought, wow. I'm like,
Fucking
oh,
paranoid
wow.
ass musicians.
I don't know what's with that. You're
I don't
like,
want to send you my music. You're gonna steal it.
I mean, please. I mean,
It's like, motherfucker, I'm trying to play for you. I need to know what you sound
I
like,
need
you
to know what it
bastard.
sounds like. And I kind of get that, and I kind of don't.
Paranoid.
At the end of the day, if it's on YouTube, however many people listen to it, why do you care? It's more hits and more views for your video, your channel. Why do you care? You know, if you just pop it up, you don't have to put up the whole thing. You could put up, 1 minute worth of the music just so that people have an idea of what it sounds like. So anyway, so he went ahead and sent me the music, and I thought, oh wow, I'm like, that sounds really cool. It kind of reminded me actually of a slight Dream Theater aspect to it. Is very technical on the guitar and a lot of fast double bass. Now, at the time, I wasn't playing double bass that strong. I was kind of getting into it, but I really wasn't playing double bass proficiently at the time. I was practicing at it, but I had just gotten the pedals maybe a few months before I contacted him, and I said, it has a lot of double bass. I don't know if, I'm going to be up for that because I can play single kind of fast, but I'm not that great at doubles and using a pedal. I just got the pedals. So he's just like, oh, well, that's cool. We can just hang out and practice either at my place or your place. And at the time, I said, oh, I have this little room set up in my house. It's kind of like a mini studio where the kid is. And we kind of squished in there and we would practice. And he had a lot of patience with me. He's like, well, you know the song, but, I really want you to try to, just practice more on the doubles or whatever using the pedals. So I did that. And that was pretty cool. And then he was saying, like, oh, I'm still looking for a bass player. So at that point, it was just kind of me, him, and this younger guy that was on rhythm. And he's like, well, this guy is not that proficient yet on the songs, but he can play or whatever. And I've been teaching him the songs as well on the side, like I'm doing with you. So we did that. And then eventually we started saying, like, okay, let's all pitch in. And now we're ready to get a room and do it by the hour. And, we didn't want to do a lockout or anything like that. So we'd always practice for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours or whatever, once or twice a week. And that's how we built up the band. And then we eventually got a bass player, and he jumped on board, and that's how the band started. And then we started doing a few shows around town or whatever. We did a couple of videos, and that was kind of it. We were together about maybe 3, almost 4 years, and one by one, certain members decided they didn't want to do it anymore. I was the last, surprisingly. I tried to hang in there with him, and but that's just
Loyalty
how it goes.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that said, you heard Jay's her modesty on her double pedals. Not said that she wasn't that proficient, but you will hear in this song, she definitely can handle that double pedal on the bass drum there. So we're gonna play a little bit of that. This is Lord Marshall. I believe the song is called "Custom Fast Fire." Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So "Custom Fast Fire" by Lord Marshall. Here's a little bit of it. Enjoy. And we're back. That was Lord Marshall, Custom Fast Fire. That was the lovely Jay Shaw on the drums that you guys heard in that little clip. Again, if you want to hear the whole song and the whole video, it's down in the description. Just go ahead and click the link. I can't play the whole song because that's not mine.
That's right.
So, and it's not an original song that Jay wrote, so she can't give me the permission to do it either. So the music
Correct.
is weird with all the rights and shit. So
It belongs to Lord Marshall.
yeah. Now, if I was worth any shit, I probably could have contacted him like, hey, you mind if I play your whole song? But it is what it is. So, so that was Jay playing metal, and you'll learn here that she's very eclectic. I mean, her music styles are very different from each other in some of the bands that she's played in.
I'm all over the place, dude.
Absolutely all over the place. Now here's a good one. Here's one you sent me where you were playing. We talked about the NAMM show. Now, for those of you who don't know, me and Jay actually met a few years ago through. It's funny she brings up Craigslist because, that's funny that people fucking use Craigslist. I'm like, what the fuck are you using Craigslist for? But so
what else is there?
Well, now they're in the modern times with the age of the internet, there's something called Bandmix, and so that's what me and Jay actually met.
That's not that great either.
Yeah, it's starting to suck over the years. Like it was better 10 years ago.
Starting?
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, like the mid 2000s, it was really good. I used it a lot, but maybe it's different in Toronto because that's when I was living up there in Canada, and we were.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But
yeah, maybe. Maybe people are more serious there.
But yeah, it's not slim pickings I think nowadays. But I met her through that. I met her through a band mix. At the time, I was kind of looking at drummers or looking at different musicians before I had formed Murder Most Foul, or around the time I was forming Murder Most Foul. I forget the fucking timeline. And then through conversation, and we started talking about the NAMM show. And at the time, I didn't have passes at that point. Usually, I always had passes at some shape or form. And then she informed me, she's like, well, I know some people. If you want to go to the NAMM show, I could get you passes. I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to fucking NAMM. So, and again, the NAMM show is a big convention. It's at the what is it called? The Anaheim Convention Center.
Convention Center.
Yeah, It's at the Anaheim Convention Center every year at the end of January, the last weekend of January. It's just awesome. It's 4 days of just, if you're a musician, it's fucking phenomenal. You get to play with it, see all the new instruments and all the new gear that's coming out. But the best part is all the artists come out, all the rock stars and the musicians and professional musicians, and they play free shows at the end of each day. They call them after hours parties. So it's a lot of fun. It's great. So me and Jay,
it's like being a kid in a massive candy store.
Absolutely,
you can't see it all in a weekend. Honestly, you need the whole 4 days if you can.
I'd go every single year if I could. I've met people who's like, or you even told me because you've been there way more than I have. And you're like, yeah, I've been here like every year for like 10 years. Like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's still awesome to me. I love like just carrying my bottle or my can of like rum and Monster. Or rum and coke, just rocking the different levels, the different floors, and it's good times. But with that said, you did something at the NAMM show for Roland keyboards, correct?
Yes.
And what year was that?
One of their. That I don't recall the year. It's been more than probably 6 years now that I did that, and it was more of like a promotional video that was used strictly for NAMM. So as you walk around the bigger music companies like Roland and Fisher and Marshall or whatever, they have, their huge, exhibits, and it sometimes has multiple different little videos or like a little band setup and stuff like that. So the promotional video that I did was constantly playing throughout the day on the main screen as soon as you kind of walk into Roland.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, the video wasn't featuring the electronic drum kit at the time. It was featuring a keyboard, which was pretty cool. So I believe I got that gig actually through MI. And of course, that was way after I graduated, but I was at an alumni status, and that had some perks to it as well. And one of those perks was, saying like, oh, hey, we thought you might be interested in doing this promotional video. I believe it was in Orange County. And I just, I only had a day to listen to the track. And of course, it's just, 2.5 minutes worth of just a loop of music. And you're just kind of obviously pretending to play with a band. So I got to do that for Roland, which was pretty cool at the time. And it was a lot of money, but it was a little bit of money, and they also hooked me up with some passes for the NAMM show.
Now, how awesome is that? Talk about full circle. Talk about validation to a point. With, like you said, you got that through MI. MI offered that to you. Do you want to go do this? Now, at the beginning of this discussion, you talked about how when you first went to MI, you first got there, how you had to wait a semester because the instructors there and the audition team didn't go well, and they're like, maybe you should wait a semester, learn this and that, and kind of you in their eyes you weren't there yet. And here it is, years later, after post MI, you've been playing for a while, you're an accomplished musician, and they're like, oh, we think you're good enough to go play a promotional video for Roland to be the main feature on their promotional video at the fucking NAMM show. Like, how cool is that? What a full circle. Like, that's some pretty good validation to say
that was
that you definitely belong.
Yeah, that was an awesome feeling. I mean, I was like, wow, what? I was a little nervous and was kind of like, wow. I'm like, I only have a day though to like. They're like, well, it's not a big deal. There's just going to be 2 different songs, maybe 3, and you're just gonna be pretending to play anyway. But we still want you to kind of jam out. And I got to jam with the guys. And, they, of course, provided us lunch. We had to be there at the crack at like 8 a.m. or something, and didn't go home until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was kind of a long day, but, there's hair and makeup, and you got to do all that, and then they got to change the set. But it was a really cool thing to do, and yeah, MI was, a part of that, which was even better.
So we'll take, that's, what's it, a 2-minute video? Something like that?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I think I could play all of this. It's a promo video.
It's a promo video. So it's not exactly new.
Yeah. So with that said, we're gonna play that for you guys. We'll play the whole. You'll see Jade again. She's not the feature, but she is in the video. Like, the feature is the Roland keyboard and all that. But you get to see her playing, and this was the promotional video she did for Roland keyboards that was played at the NAMM show at their main booth. So we will be right back. Enjoy this 2 minutes of Jay playing.
Introducing the portable, expressive, and versatile Atelier Combo AT350C keyboard. With its handy dual keyboard configuration and optional stand and pedal boards, the AT350C is loaded with features, but designed to easily hit the road in a standard-sized car. When you arrive at the gig, use the AT Combo as a multi-keyboard stand-up rig, or take advantage of the optional pedal boards to kick live bass. At the heart of the AT350C is Roland's exclusive and powerful supernatural technology and a huge library of high-resolution sounds, along with Roland's famous virtual tone wheel organ. Its list of appealing real-time performance features includes physical harmonic bars, Roland's popular infrared D-beam, and a built-in library of rhythms and musical styles. The AT350C also offers MIDI file and audio file playback with interactive control and boasts a large graphical LCD for easy navigation. And Roland's KC series keyboard amps are the perfect companions for stage or home. Whether you're looking for a solo performance instrument or a versatile keyboard rig for the band, the boundary-breaking AT350C sets a new standard in live performance versatility and convenience.
All right, welcome back. So once again, that was Jay Shaw in her promotional video for Roland keyboards at the NAMM show that we were talking about. And so again, there you get to see the difference in the different style. You went from a metal band to this promo kind of softer type, I don't want to call it jazz fusion, but
Yeah, I think it's been more of a poppy kind of a style. That the guy's name, actually I still remember his name, Roger. Roger was probably the coolest guy out of the 4 guys that we played with. One of the guys wound up leaving. I don't know what happened, but it wound up just being. Yeah, I don't know
what. Wait. So there was some divaness during the shooting of the commercial and
Not
the
that, I
promo.
don't know what happened with him actually. No, I don't think he was a diva either. He was sick, or he
Caught the Rona.
maybe he couldn't play
He caught the Rona before there was
something.
Rona.
I mean, I don't know, but it wound up just being who you see in the video, and Roger was the keyboardist, and he was a really nice guy. He played, I believe, mostly in church and stuff like that, so it honestly sounded, it had like a jazzy kind of church vibe, the little ditty that he's playing on the keyboards, and he's really good, obviously, but yeah, that was a fun shoot, and like I said, I had a lot of fun with that, and I only got a chance to do one other promotional video. I don't know if you have the clip for that, where I did for Simmons, so that's another big electronic drum kit. And
We
they're a
do,
little
yeah.
on the cheaper side. Obviously, they're not they're not Roland, but
Yeah,
they're definitely well known.
we do have that clip as well, and we'll probably play that that clip a little bit later too. Now I want to talk about another band you played with. Talk about kind of the other side of the spectrum. Kind of, I guess this would fit in between like that church jazz sound and metal. This was kind of this kind of funk rock, kind of almost Primus, but not really. It's weird to describe this guy's style of music, and you know which band I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Phantasmo, right? It was how it's
Yes.
said. So interesting band, very interesting. But I definitely like this video. Is it Superman? Is actually what the song's called.
Yeah, that one, and I don't know if you said you like the other one actually a little bit better. So whichever one you want to.
Well, I definitely want to
Throw up,
feature
you can.
a Superman because you get to hear again like
It's like a ska,
drumming. The
like a
drumming in
ska
this
rock.
song is pretty epic. It's pretty phenomenal. And again, you get to see the range of Jay from that metal band to the kind of jazz churchy music, and then to this kind of almost Primus like style of music. But talk about Phantasmo. Talk about how you hooked up with that band and your time there, and then we'll play the clip.
That I believe was also from Craigslist. To be
You and your
honest,
Craigslist.
I know. I would say, to be honest, one day I wouldn't mind meeting Craig or sending him. I'm sure he has a way to say thank you to him if he has a Facebook or a personal page. I'm sure he has that. But as I think of it now, I'd be like, well, damn, Craig, like you helped me out. I've gotten, honestly, almost all of my gigs, bands. The only thing I didn't get through Craigslist were probably the promotional videos for Roland and Simmons, and maybe a handful of other things. But really, all of the gigs that I've been in, where it was, I was just a hired person, a hired gun for the day or whatever, or for a promotional video for an international artist. All of that was from Craigslist, believe it or not. So Phantasmo, and I don't remember the guy's actual name, but the name of the band is Phantasmo, and he is, the lead singer and guitarist on all of his songs and music. I just answered an ad, and it was kind of unfortunate, though, a lot of times, too, with these bands and these videos that I did. I only had, a day or two to learn the music. So, this was the case with him where I believe he thought he had somebody and then they didn't work out or something like that. Typical case in Hollywood or LA, happens all the time. So you got to have a backup. So he's like, oh, I had somebody, but they're flaking and I don't know if they're going to come through. I'm going to be in this area. And he was somewhere in the San Fernando Valley and had already had the studio and the makeup lady and everything paid for. So he's just like, can you learn it in a day? I was just like, I'm at work right now, but I'm like, I can do it. He's like, do you have your own drums and cymbals? And I said, oh yeah, I have my own gear and I've got a,
Like, how horrible is that? Like, especially now, like somebody asked me, like, you have your own drum kit, right? Like, because that became the thing there, like, especially in LA.
Well,
like,
I
you
don't
have
know
to ask
why.
musicians if they have their own gear.
I mean, I get that, and I don't know why that happened over the last, I'll say, 10 years. It's kind of happened more and more and more. Maybe now it's kind of slimmed off or whatever because you can get a smaller kit, or even if you don't have a full-blown kit, you have at least the main pieces, and you can keep that in a closet in your apartment. Even if you live with 5 fucking people, you can make it happen. But I get where, some people don't have. You still there?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. People don't have
Oh,
what? I'm sorry.
where you don't have the full kit. So I said, yes, I have a full kit and I can be there. I'm not that far. I'm in the San Fernando Valley as well. And he's just like, well, I get that it's kind of short notice, but, we'll play around with the songs too. And the other ladies, they don't play that often either on their instruments, but we're going to jam out, for an hour before the actual video. I just want to try to make it look, as natural and clean as possible. And I said, oh, that's fine. But I really thought the music was really kind of cool after I heard it. I was like, oh, wow, this sounds really kind of ska, yet funk rocky kind of vibes off of it. I don't
It's
really know how to
definitely
describe
different.
it.
It's definitely
It's
different.
different.
But I like what I got out of it. Like I think I definitely, like I told you yesterday, the drums in this song definitely carry the song. Like I think if the drums were different or weren't as powerful and as good as they were, I don't think this song would be as appealing to the listener, because I think it's carried on the drums. Because without it, it's a little out there. Like you'd almost not be able to take it seriously if it wasn't for the drums. So again, like, and I've said this to people before. I've said it in my own bands. I've said it to musicians. Drums matter, man. Like drums is one of the, if not the most important part in a good song. Because if the drums are weak, it doesn't matter how good the singer is, how good the guitar players are, how good the keyboards are. Like it's not going to matter, because all anybody can hear is the shitty drumming. So
Right.
so that's an example. This song is, again, like the drums in it is really awesome. Kind of all like, again, this primacy kind of odd meter, crazy stuff. So let's go ahead and play that. We're going to play a little bit of that. This is Fantazzmo, Superman's official video. Again, all the links will be on the bottom. We'll play maybe 30 seconds or so of it. And here we go. We get CJ in a cartoon-like superhero video thing. We'll be right back.
Don't you know you drive me crazy? Don't you know I feel it when we touch? Don't you know you drive me mad? Don't you know the best I've had? Don't you know I'm loving it, baby, oh so much? Hey, girl, I like your style. Can we get freaking wild? Can we do it one more time? I'm loving it, baby. Hey, girl, I love the way. Girl, hear what I say. Girl, here's to that tootie fruity, love that booty. Back to the middle, back in the middle now. Back to the middle, back in the middle now. Back to the middle, back in the middle now. All up in the middle now.
All right, and we're back. That was Jay Shaw with one of the bands she played in, Fantazzmo. That song was called Superman. As you guys heard, as you can see, again, quite different. Very interesting band. Again, the drums on that song are pretty amazing. I believe you have a little guest there that joined you.
Here today?
Yeah, on your lap there.
So I have two here actually. I have Sydney and Daisy chilling with me at home.
Those are her little puppies.
Yes, they're so sweet. My little seniors.
They're little senior citizens. So if you hear them barking in the background, that's what you hear.
Yeah, ignore it.
So we were talking about the Mesh Drumheads endorsement. And that you got pretty recent, right? What was that, about a year ago or
that
year and a half ago or
was
something?
maybe a year and a half ago with Simmons. Yeah, they came out with the Mesh, of course. Again, they're trying to, just be competitive out there with some of the other bigger, names, obviously, that already had the Mesh years ago. But they wanted to try to obviously make it, but be able to make it obviously at a more price friendly, shall we say, for those that don't have, that aren't able to shell out, let's say, a couple of grand, 2 to 3 grand for some of the higher end kits. And I think they did a pretty good job, honestly, on it. They came out with 2 or 3 different models. So with that, like I was telling you, I don't really honestly know how this guy found me. I don't remember um, using Craigslist or applying for anything or reading the ad. And after I asked him, he's just like, no, it wasn't from Craigslist. So, and then I just realized, like, I don't know where it was from. Maybe he just Googled female drummers. I have no idea how this guy found me or somebody recommended me. I'm not really sure. But that was a pretty cool promotional video that was also a promotional video, but it also let just the drummer be featured by themselves, playing along, playing with the settings, and then doing like a little mini interview, along with, showcasing what the kit can do. So, and I have a Simmons drum amp that I bought from them about 4 years ago, actually. And I've always liked their drum amps. Very good, high quality, in my opinion. But yeah, they came out with the mesh kit, and it sounded pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't really say that it's not something that could be used in a live performance. I personally have not yet used just solely electronic drum kit on any gig. I've used maybe 1 or 2 of the heads and, link that up so that it has like some percussion sound or some different, special effects or whatever when I'm playing with different bands. But yeah, that was a cool little promotional video that I did for them. And I think it did play at NAMM that year, but I don't recall because they usually don't have a huge exhibit or booth for Simmons. They only have maybe a handful of their amps. I think they're more known for their amps, not so much their drum kits, even though people do know that they do make electronic kits.
Simmons, the original innovator in electronic drums, has created the SD550, an affordable electronic kit for drummers of any experience level.
I've been drumming for many years. I play mostly rock and pop, some hip hop. I do a lot of for hire gigs, and I play and jam with people for fun as well.
The SD550 features mesh drum pads with a responsive, realistic feel while being virtually silent and comfortable to play for hours.
One kit, and I don't remember what it was, but they were all the rubber heads. And over time, what I realized is that it had such a bounce on it that for me, I honestly just didn't like the feel of it. The mesh was definitely the way to go.
The rugged steel rack stays solid no matter how hard you hit the pads. The 10-inch snare drum pad is dual zone, assignable to rim shots or clicks for another color in your performance.
I would say if I'm going to use an electronic kit for performance, it's way easier because it's already set up on a rack. For me to be able just to pick up an electronic kit with everything attached to it, including the cymbals, all I have to do is really just, plug everything in, power it on, and just go.
25 kits are available in a variety of styles, from pop to vintage rock and Latin jazz.
So speaking of electronic kits, do you remember, I believe it was 2 years ago when we were at the NAMM show, that that digital drum set, that it was just the sticks and it was like almost like a video game. They gave you the sticks and they put those little like sensors on your feet.
Yes,
Remember
there's two
that was
different
wild.
ones. One is called air drums, and I forget what the other ones were called. And I passed that booth, this past January, and there was a young guy there. He looked just like Jimi Hendrix. I stopped, not because I was like, oh, I already know that those drums are there, but he just kind of like surprised me. I was like, wow, this kid looks just like Jimi Hendrix. It was kind of wild. And he's just like, you want to come and play? And I was just like, sure. And there was a long line, though. And I said, oh, I've already played these a couple times, but they're pretty cool. I said, did anything different come out about them this year or whatever? And he's just like, no. And I said, well, I'm going to let the other people play for a while. I'll walk around and come back. But they've got like 2 or 3 different, I call them air drums, which is exactly what they are. I mean, It's just the stick, and I think it had 2 or 3 little foot pedals for like the hi-hat, the bass drum, and maybe something else. But it was pretty cool. I mean, it's a cool concept. It's not something that I would take too seriously to play live, but it's a fun concept for sure.
Well, I think it's a great practice tool. Like, I mean, now who knows? I don't know, like how far the technology's come, for live stream. There may well be, but definitely as a practice. I mean, because was it actually pedals, or was it just like almost like a sensor on your foot that acted as the pedals?
It was like a little thing that attached
To your
to
foot,
the
right?
top or the bottom of your shoe. And as you tapped your feet, you could do obviously something with the feet, and obviously you had the hands. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an awesome practice tool for an apartment, or if you're just, you're in a room in an apartment, again, if you have roommates, or you're in a space where you want to like just bust out some tunes at the beach or at a public park by
to
yourself or
give you
with your
guys
friends.
to give you
It's
guys
fun.
a perspective and like a visual of what we're talking about. So for anybody who's heard of what electronic drums are, for a lot of musicians, a lot of drummers who live in apartments or just even in houses, whatever, had to have roommates, like she said. And the old ways of doing things was you got an electronic drum set, and you could plug it into an amp, you plug in some headphones, and you can practice your drums. Now you can still hear like a little bit of sound from the outside because you're hitting basically rubber mats and mesh heads, like she was talking about the mesh kit, the Simmons mesh kit. So you can even when you're plugged into headphones, you still hear the sound of hitting material, almost like you're hitting a drumstick on a pillow. It gives you that kind of thump sound. So you're still
Right.
hearing something, right? Now this thing is the next level. What these things are, like Jay said, they're just sticks. They got little sensors on the sticks. It's a software. It's like a digital. It's like a little. You have all you need is your laptop on the side, and an amp that plugs into it. It has some kind of interface. I forget exactly how they did it, but it has an interface. You
It had
look,
like an iPad kind of a thing, so you could actually see if you wanted a visual of what you're hitting. So I had like a little iPad type of a thing,
yeah.
and or an amp, or if you didn't want to use an amp, obviously you could just plug in headphones to the pad and just jam out to something.
Yeah, and it's just stick. There's no kit. There's nothing. It's just the sticks and these little sensors on your feet. And was it the way you placed your feet would be the determination of if you were hitting a hi hat or the kick drum? Was that how that
Yeah.
worked? Right. So if you
Kick drum, and then there was one other, I don't know what the third little sensor was for, I don't recall.
if you like turned your left leg out towards the side, it would know that you wanting the hi hat, right?
Right.
And then if you were more towards the middle and moving your feet together, they probably understood that it was like a double pedal that you were trying to accomplish.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't know what kind of, and it had several types of kits and several sounds. So of course you could customize, once you have, I guess, the main kit, you could also, program it, I believe, to have the different heads, like maybe the snare, tom 1 and 2 could sound like a vocal, one sounds like a violin, and the other one sounds like a, some other kind of African drum or something like that. So
actually, it comes to think, I think I still have a couple of pictures of you on that kit. So if I do, I'll
okay.
throw those up on the video so people can see exactly what we're talking about.
Because they're like, what the hell are they talking
I'm
about?
like, do I have video? I might even have a clip of it. If I have a video clip of it, we'll put that in there too. And you guys can see what we're talking about. It's just phenomenal. Like the technology, it's one of those things where you're just like, it just blows your mind. Like I remember when we walked by, I was like, God damn, that's awesome though. It's a cool practice tool, I think, for drummers. Like you could literally take your drums anywhere and just get working. It's crazy. Like before,
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
only guitar, basically only guitar fucking players used to be able to do that. Just kind of take their guitar anywhere they wanted.
Well, yeah. I mean, keep in mind, like, I'm sure that's probably what drummers thought, like, maybe a guitarist came up with it, like, I can walk around with, or a violinist or a saxophonist, I can walk around with my instrument really anywhere, but at the same time, are you able to do it or play so that no one else can hear you? Probably not. So that's what's also kind of good about the air drum thing is that you could just have in headphones, and if you have just a small iPad or
Yeah.
maybe even a phone, I don't know how it'd be pretty tiny on a phone, but you can just literally still play and you're not annoying somebody at the park or the beach or wherever you're at.
They're just
They
thinking,
don't hear
they just think
you.
you're crazy.
Yeah,
They
they
just see
they just see the
some person,
headphones
just moving your hands around,
and the
playing.
sticks.
They're like,
They're
oh,
like,
goddamn crackheads.
okay, yeah.
Another
See,
crackhead in
if you
LA.
do that at Venice Beach or Santa Monica, no one thinks twice.
Right. No,
Right?
so what you're saying is it was a disgruntled guitar player who got tired of his drummer who wasn't practicing all the time. God damn it! Why don't you know the song?
Could be.
I can't practice, man. I can't take my drums everywhere. He's like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm gonna make something.
Maybe.
No, but it's a cool little event. You get to see all kinds of cool stuff at the NAMM show, which is why it's one of my favorite things to go to. So cool. So what? We'll wrap up here soon. What do you got? If future plans, current plans, are you working on anything? You playing in any band right now? What do you got going on?
I just finished my coursework at CSUN, so I plan on getting my bachelor's degree in the mail, I guess, before the end of the summer. So that was kind of a long haul, but I did it. I still work full time. Like I said, I've always worked. And I took the classes part time, mostly working nights, evenings, and online. And it took me a while to finish up, but I finally finished it and I'm done. So honestly, the last couple years, I haven't been doing a lot of drumming simply because I just did not have a lot of time to put into it. And I'm the type of musician and person that if I say I'm going to do something and I'm going to be there and I'm going to put in the time and practice, I'm going to do it. I don't half-ass it. So, I had a lot of people that said, well, can't you just do it on a Saturday or Sunday? It only take a couple of hours. I know you're busy and I know you're studying, but I'm like, you know what? I'd rather not. I got to a point where I did that a couple of times and I just felt like, that I was rushed or I was rushing them or that I wasn't playing or having as much fun with it because I was constantly thinking about like, I have to do this, that, or the other. And I'm just not putting all of my heart into playing the music or whatever. So I let it take a back burner for a couple of years. I've only done like maybe 1 or 2 gigs here or there. I did one at the NAMM show. I did a performance there. You were there for that with the one guy that was the bass player for Bass Player Magazine. I did that. And then I did a couple of gigs after that were kind of small. And then I only did actually 1 gig last year. And I just played like 3 songs, kind of open mic style with some people that I met. They were great people, singer-songwriter kind of music, and that was all I did, honestly. So now I'm at that point where I'm like, hooray, it's over, I can get back into music nights and weekends, and that's what I plan on doing slowly but surely. So right now I don't have any definite plans to play with anyone in particular. Tomorrow, actually, I am going to play with a couple of people and record 2 songs with them at a small place in Northridge. So that'll be my first time, getting kind of back out into the music in like almost a year. So I'm looking forward to like jamming out and playing with them. And I know with the whole COVID-19 and everybody kind of being, still trying to keep a social distance, I'm not really sure how that's going to go for not just myself, but anybody. It's kind of hard. I know people want to get out there and jam, and they're like, oh, I can wear a mask, I can wear gloves, and we can be 6 feet apart. But, depending on where you rehearse, if it's a house, if it's a studio, it's a lockout, it can definitely happen. And, obviously people are just honestly tired of, being told a date and how much more time they have to stay in and don't do this, don't do that. But I think it's going to come around, and in the next month or 2, hopefully LA as a city and a county actually will get a little bit of a break and, we start to lighten up on the whole lockdown aspect of things and, musicians can get back to getting out there and at least playing with each other, even if they're not able to play out in bars, restaurants, or clubs.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think hopefully, we'll start to kind of get back to a little more normalcy in the coming weeks. Definitely, I think people are getting frustrated. They're getting cabin fever,
Yeah.
And it's obviously it's a serious situation and people have died and all that. But I think hopefully we've curbed that the threshold enough where we can start getting back to a normal lifestyle. Because everybody, not life has to move on. Life has to get on, and hopefully that happens sooner than later for everybody. So is that a session? Is it like a session gig? Is it a band that you're like is like a kind of reforming of a band type thing? Or what is it?
These were actually the same people I played with last summer. It's a singer-songwriter couple. They're a little older, and he plays guitar and sings backup and does all the music, and his wife does mostly the singing and a little bit of percussion. And, they have a guy that they have on bass and then myself, and that's kind of it. They don't play out that often, and, they like to kind of just spend their time mostly writing and creating new music, and they play a handful of shows here and there, and just like with anybody else, things have just really died down in the last couple of years, and same thing happened with them. They're not playing any shows or anything, but they said that they had some new songs that they wanted to start, recording, and then eventually, maybe before the end of the summer, if it's, possible, to play a couple of shows out at a venue or a restaurant or a bar or whatever. So we're just going to start with just 2 of their new songs that they wrote and just record those, because the one guy is from Japan and he has to go back in a couple of days, and he may not be able to come back out again until the fall or the winter of this year, if at all. So we're going to knock out the 2 songs, and that'll be it.
That's interesting. I wonder, was he just not coming back because just that his own thing, or is it because of the corona thing?
Well, he's a student, and I'm not sure what school he was going to, or if he graduated. I'm assuming maybe he finished, or I don't know how the visas go, to be honest. I know that for the most part, they're here for X amount of months until the school term ends, and then once it ends, usually they go back home, and they don't come back again until the next term. Of course, in this case, if he has graduated and he's done and he doesn't have any more schooling to do, and I don't know what kind of school it is, I don't know if it's music or not, then he wouldn't be able to come back. That would be it. He had his 2 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and if he's graduating, not get a chance to come back.
Well, hopefully things work out for him.
Unless he, marries somebody.
Right.
We stays here illegally,
right.
I don't know.
Do the, what is it called? No, that's an anchor baby. What's the other one? I don't know what they call it for a husband-wife team.
Arranged marriage. Or marriage of convenience.
There you go. Marriage of convenience. That's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so you just tell them, go find one of these ladies just to get hitched up.
I mean, he could.
So, well, all right. I think we're going to wrap up there. Let everybody know where they can find you. Where they can follow you, find your. Again, all the links for the music and everything we talked about will be in the descriptions below. But let everybody know where they can find you social media wise.
My main website is drumher.com, and that's DRM as in Mary, HER. So drumher.com is my main website. And I have all of my information, my resume, the videos, photos, and all of that are on there. I don't really do, honestly, much Facebook or anything like that. I'm on there once in a while, but I'm not a huge Facebook or Instagram. I do have those outlets to use here and there, but I really don't use them that much. So I just ask that people, if they want to contact me, they contact me through my main website. And once they send me an email, it goes straight to my main email, my personal email. And then I'll just contact them back that way. But if you do want to reach me on Facebook, it's just Jay Shaw. And just Google that, I guess, on Facebook, and then you'll find me.
So there you go. So thank you very much. The lovely Jay Shaw, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been another edition of Most Foul Music. Thank you, everybody for listening, and we will see you again next week. Have a good day.
Bye.